Holocaust denial is an assault on memory. It's an assault on the memory embodied in Holocaust survivors. There are very few Holocaust survivors, and especially Auschwitz survivors, left. We are in some way considering what will be the future of Holocaust memory without the survivors. We're here at the Royal Ontario Museum, and we're at the entrance of the evidence room. My name is Jan van Pelt, and I'm a professor at the School of Architecture at the University of Waterloo. The evidence room has its origin in a trial that was held in the year 2000 in England. It was a libel trial in which the Holocaust denier, David Irving, sued a Holocaust historian, Deborah Lipstadt. Deborah Lipstadt had accused David Irving of being a falsifier of history, a Holocaust denier. Irving decided in 1996 to sue her in a British court. Irving had converted to Holocaust denial in 1988 here in Toronto, when he attended as a witness the trial of Holocaust denier Ernst Zundel. During this trial, an American engineer named Fred Leuchter presented evidence that the gas chambers in Auschwitz could not have worked. The testimony by Leuchter in the Zundel trial had convinced David Irving that indeed the Holocaust was a lie, that if Auschwitz had not been an extermination camp, that none of the evidence could be trusted about the mass killings of Jews in German-occupied Europe. And he became the main propagator in Europe, but also in North America, of the thesis that the Holocaust was in fact a ploy, first by British intelligence and later by Zionists, to swindle the Germans out of billions of marks and the Palestinians out of a homeland. I was asked to join this trial and to testify about the evidence about Auschwitz. I had to show that the evidence presented by Leuchter was basically not worth the paper it was written on. And so here we have a model of crematorium number 3. This is one of the 4 gas chamber equipped crematoria. It consisted of an underground undressing room with the victims entering at the far end. This was a very large room. It was over 250 square meters large. Once the victims were undressed, they were herded into an underground gas chamber. The underground gas chambers had gas columns through which the gas was introduced in this space. And after everyone was killed, their corpses were brought into a little elevator which brought the corpses up to the main floor. And there were 15 ovens in 5 triple arrangement that could incinerate the corpses in 24 hours. Now, what Holocaust deniers say is that these buildings were not really killing machines. That yes, there are a lot of ovens, but that these ovens had the capacity, the alleged capacity, they say they had, of 1,500 corpses per day to deal with the victims of typhus epidemics. The gas column became, in the trial, the key piece of evidence that was challenged by Irving. What were these gas columns? The gas came in tins. The tins were commercially available tins of delousing agency called Zyklon or Cyclone. Now, when the Germans started using this product, this toxin, on human beings, they discovered very quickly that when people were exposed to a concentration of around 300 parts per million, they would die within 5–10 minutes. However, the degassing of the cyanide would continue for another 23.5 hours. This was not a problem when you were involved in occasional killing, let's say every week or so. But when trains started arriving on a 24-hour basis at Auschwitz, and the Germans wanted to kill people on a 24-hour cycle in which within 24 hours people arrive, are selected, brought to the undressing room, into the gas chamber, killed, and then their corpses are being incinerated before the next transport arrives. The continuous degassing of the pallets of cyclone was a real problem. So this is why they created this gas column. So this gas column has the purpose not so much of introducing the gas, introducing the cyclone into the space, but even more importantly, to take it out after 15 minutes, so that this 24-hour cycle of killing and incineration could be maintained. Then, after that, the ventilators could be turned on, and the Sonderkommandos, the slave workers who had to clean the gas chamber, would, after 10-15 minutes, be able to enter the gas chamber and start the gruesome work of removing the corpses, retrieving dental gold and so on, and then bring them up to the incinerators. Now, Holocaust deniers, and also Irving, have made the existence or non-existence of the columns in some way the key to their argument. They say, no holes, no Holocaust. And the holes they're referring to are the holes that existed in the concrete roof of the gas chamber through which the central column connected to the outside world. When the SS left Auschwitz in January 1945, they dynamited the gas chambers. And this meant that the roof collapsed on the floor of the gas chamber. And we were, in the trial, able to prove to the satisfaction of the judge that indeed these holes had existed, these purposely made holes had existed in the ruined slab of that covered the gas chamber. One of the pieces we see in this room is a door, a gas door. This door basically has two sides. This is the place that we call it the perpetrator side. And we see here two latches that are used to close the door when the gas chamber will be brought in operation, to close the door after all the victims have been brought in. One of the latches moves, can be closed, and this is the last thing the 2,000 people would have heard before the gas would be introduced. Now, Holocaust deniers say that this gas door actually had not a genocidal function. That air raid shelters have gas doors, because during an air raid one could also have all kinds of toxic gases that are being produced by the bombing, and so a normal piece of equipment in an air raid shelter is a gas-tight door. Now, why is this not a door for an air raid shelter? First of all, the question is, if you walk into this space that is protected by the door, you wouldn't want to be inside with somebody on the outside being able to close the door like this. And you would have no means from the inside to open the door again. You are going to be locked in. Always somebody on the outside will have to open the latches to allow the door to open again. But when we go to the other side of the door, and we look now at the door as it would be from the inside, we see also that for an air raid shelter, this door would really not have worked. The first thing which is very clear is that there is no hint, that there's no way on the inside to actually manipulate this door. There's no way to open it. There's no handle. So once you're inside and somebody has closed the door on the outside, you're locked in. This we call the victim's side of the door. People were pushed in this room, 10 people per square meter, and when the gas was introduced, a panic would happen. The panic was such that we have eyewitness reports that the victims tried to break the glass of the peephole. That was the only agency they still had left in this panic. And therefore the Germans created this protective half sphere made out of steel over the peephole. And in some way it is this protective device that in some way gives an indication of the terrible conditions that were inside that gas chamber. If the only thing that you can still do is try to break the glass in that peephole as the gas enters, it really means that you have no agency, no options whatsoever. After a trial that lasted 33 days in court, Irving was declared the loser by the judge. This case was very important because for the first time, both Holocaust denial and the theories that support Holocaust denial, as well as the evidence, in this case for the killings in Auschwitz, had been subjected to a judicial review. And a judge who presided over the case without a jury had come to the conclusion that the Holocaust indeed had taken place, and that the key place in the Holocaust, Auschwitz, had been an extermination camp in which more than 1 million people had been killed in gas chambers.
Help TVO create a better world through the power of learning. Visit TVO.org and make a tax-deductible donation today.